Hi, hello everyone. Welcome here. Welcome to the Davis Autism Approach. You are sitting here today probably because you're a parent, a family member, an educator, or a therapist working with an ASD individual. So today you are going to understand what the DAA or Davis Autism Approach is about. Today we'll start by talking about something on Davis, the founder of this approach. And then we try to understand the development of ASD, why there are so many challenges for them. Then we'll focus a lot of the time to talk about the methodologies of the DAA, and then to tell you what are the options for the ASD individuals you are working with or living with to participate in this approach. So let's get started. So first of all, I would love to share with you something about Davis' life. This is Davis. He is now around 80 years old, very happy. Although he retired recently, but he's still working for this approach in many other ways. It looked happy in this picture, but for his childhood, it is a very sad story. Very early on in his life, Ron already was diagnosed as a Canis baby. Today, we call that autistic. And because of this, his childhood was filled with violence and intolerance. He described his early years as being in the void of autism, a place of being everything and nothing at the same time, as being the feeling of pure, unconditional love. In this void of autism, he discovered the red dirt in his backyard, and he could do anything by mixing water to it to make things that he could not have in real life. At school, he was ridiculed and made to sit in a corner with a handkerchief over his head, and home he was beaten severely by his father and an older brother. Although his mother was his angel, he could not save him from this. At these times, Ron would retreat to his clay pit to find his peace, free from pain. He would use the clay to make models of his father and brother after they had beaten him, and he would smash the mother of those people who are not good to him, grinding it back into the ground. Ron did not know that he was actually acting out an important life concept, and that concept is change. And as he did this over and over again, he started to understand what consequence is about. And that was the time when the daily beatings came to an end. Ron came out from this void of autism and started to distinguish himself as being separate from others. In fact, little did he know, the clay helped him navigate his way through this chaos. He continued to create ideas and concepts with clay to help him make sense of the world. By the time he was 27, his IQ had risen from what had been termed uneducatably mentally retarded at the age of 12 to being 169. A genius had emerged. Ron believes that the potential for genius in some form exists in all of us, if only we have a foundation on which to build our thinking. This is why he created the Davis Autism Approach, to nurture the seeds of genius and to provide a pathway for those people like himself to be able to participate more fully in life. His discovery led him to a lot of adventures, and you can see from this list that in 1980, he first started to work with people who are having dyslexia like him. And in the 15 years from 1980 to 1995, he arranged and developed training workshops, and published books for people who want to understand about this challenge. And what is it to the Davis Autism Approach we have today? Because it led him to New Zealand in year 2000, and where he actually mentored Lorna to work with a young boy from New Zealand, who is the first person to do the program. This is the young boy. And from there, the license training, the parent workshop, and the book Autism and the Seeds of Genius was published. And now we have these workshops being offered throughout the world. And that was how the Davis Autism Approach came into place today. Well, after knowing about the inception of the DAA, let's look into what ASD is. Many of you may already have an idea what ASD is. In our current system, we went to the psychologists or psychiatrists to be assessed, and then they were based on, in Hong Kong at least, and in many parts of the world, use the American Psychiatric Association's criteria, DSM-5, to judge if a person or diagnose a person if he or she has ASD. Well, it is a list of criteria, and which we are not going to go through here, okay? But I can show you something that is what they generalize into certain basic criteria that we are looking at, okay? So let's see about it. So basically, we are talking about a person having autism or ASD is characterized by impaired social or communication skills, repetitive behaviors, or a restricted range of interests. To us, to Davis, we understand autism in a different way. We understand that each person has three worlds to us. We have the physical world, which is connected to cause and effect and time. We have the thought world, which is inhabited without a physical world, because you can think of anything. Like you can think of having a lovely meal that you will never have, okay? Or go to a place that you will never be able to do it with your thought. And then we also have the instinctual world, which is driven from our emotions. For ASD individuals, they have not integrated these three worlds, and they spend most of their time bound to the instinctual world, trying to protect themselves from overwhelming or scary situations. What they are doing is just seeking safety. They exist more in the instinctual world and acting upon their urge to seek pleasure. They can also spend much of their time in their thought world, as they can seek pleasure of self-entertainment through imagery. I believe you would agree that an individual with autistic characteristics does not follow the usual pathway of natural childhood development. So let's try to understand how a natural development would take place. So we will understand that we have three phases to our natural development. Our human body is just like a computer. Well, it would be easy to use the analogy of a desktop computer to explain what a human being's development is like. So at the beginning, we have all the hardware there. We have the hard drive, we have the monitor, we have the speakers, everything. So the first of all is that you need to plug everything in to make sure they recognize all these hardware. So they would be able to recognize the microphone, the speakers, and so on. So for humans, the first job is to find out with our senses and our motor ability where we fit in this world and how we are separate from everything and everyone. And we have to get all our neural networks into harmony in order to gain accurate perception, like hearing accurately, seeing accurately, etc. In doing this, we separate the world into individual pieces and in turn separate ourselves from all other things or people. and we become a self-functioning individual separate from other things and people. And that is the meaning of individuation. And if we are going to use back the computer as an example, you will see that when you connect everything, you can start to scan things and they could be read into the computer. But the ASD individuals cannot often separate things out, and the world can become overwhelming. This is because the individuation phase has not been fully completed. Now, becoming an individual is a basic. After that, they need to move on to identity development, which tends to start around at the age of 2. So like the computer, once you connect everything, you need to download some apps to it, okay? So we realize we're separate and we begin to build our identity, who we are, what we like, what we don't. So we download things that we like. We download like apps for shopping, for shops, okay, for playing music, for social media and things like that. And we start to have, as a human, we start to have desires. We have our wants, we have our likes and dislikes. And this starting point is often to refer to the terrible tool. And up until this stage, we have had our needs met. But after that, we started to sort out what we like. And so with the with the normal child, they would, well, cry for what they want now. They would not just be happy with what their mommy gave them. So in this phase, we start to develop our core identity. But this experience is important because it helps us to anchor, and it helps us to build a framework for understanding things around us. And with one experience, like a circle here, we build on something more and something more and something more. And then we have another experience and then we build on it. Okay, so until we have all these experiences with us, and then we understand many, many different things. So each experience is helping us to understand our identity, and it's building us. But our identity is never complete, as we are continuously learning, and we have sufficient, as we have sufficient core identity, we can start interacting with others and start to have relationships. The ASD individual has not been able to, well, start to build a strong core identity because the previous phase, the individuation phase, was not fully completed. And this is why we often see struggles with their social relationships. They don't have the foundation to build on for social integration. And once the identity has a major development in the core identity, we will start to move on to the next phase, which is social integration. Like when we have all the apps downloaded, we can log into the app, okay, recognize our email addresses and our phone books and stuff like that. So if we don't have that core identity, it is very difficult to move into this social integration. And people at this phase, children at this phase, will become aware of and actively seek interaction with others. And the more time we spend with others, the more we learn what is acceptable social behavior. And a significant aspect of social integration is becoming aware of the feelings and values of others and behaving accordingly. And as you all know very well, a lot of these times we see a lack of this in autism. So what happens with autism? Autism blocks these phases. So if you do not fully individuate, you don't have a sense of self, like Ron as feeling of being everything and nothing at the same time, you do not develop sufficient core identity to act as a framework to anchor in any new experience, and in turn, you do not develop, well, social integration. So you will understand that one thing actually causes another thing to happen or not happen. We would describe it like a set of dominoes. So one domino knocks the next domino over and the development continues. But if you remove a couple of dominoes in the middle, or if they are out of alignment, they will stop falling. Now, natural development does not progress them. It is like something that has blocked the natural development. The dominoes have stopped falling, so the momentum for progression or development stops. Chronological age, the real age, is not that important. What is important is actually the sequence. You can't move on to the next stage if you haven't completed the stage before. And ASD individuals have become stuck somewhere in this sequence. So the dominoes have stopped falling. And if it is the case, what can we do about it? So if with this understanding, it is now easy that if we fill in all those little holes that we talked through in these 3 phases, the autism could gradually be helped and fully participate and understand what is happening around them. So in the next section, we are going to talk about how we are going to move on with the current condition. Let's look at what we should do. Remembering the 3 phases, the individuation, the identity development, and the social integration. Okay, so we remember that there's a terrible 2, the core identity, and then the relationships. So the method to unblock and create the foundation for growth is that we need to bring these 3 worlds into harmony. Well, first of all, we will need to initiate an orientation or a stable orientation so that the dominoes will kick on. The stable orientation is like a computer which could actually recognize the different parts of the body. But how could that be done is easily said, but not easily done usually, isn't it? To make them aware of themselves as a human being, as a person. How? Okay, so the way that, well, Davis had used a lot his time to invest on is auditory orientation. So auditory orientation is a process that by using sounds, auditory meaning sounds, hearing, to help a person to be aware of the true facts and conditions. Well, Ron created this auditory orientation, and this sound could be played via a headphone. He found it out initially by helping people who are difficult to get into the orientation status when they read. So somebody will see a word or a letter, and then, or maybe a number, and then in their brains, they actually distort it. So this was originally developed for that purpose, but then later on, Ron found out that this is also the same route to help people who are very difficult, like in the ASD spectrum, to be able to orient themselves. So this sound, they can be listened through the headphones, like these 2 pictures in here you can see, okay? By hearing enough of this sound, this will help them to direct themselves to get oriented. But you know, some of the kids would not like to be put on headphones. So he developed another thing called a NOID. And I myself actually personally had a lot of experience with NOID because when he first developed it, I helped him to do research with 2 students here in Hong Kong, and I saw amazing results. And it was just amazing over the years to see the NOID helping a lot of very severely autistic individuals to come out. In here, I would like to add a little bit of my experience on that. I had a 5-year-old a few years ago, and he is like Ron, everything and nothing, no intention in play, no intention in people mostly, except for very close family members that he recognized. And he doesn't do things very meaningfully. But then with that, NOID on for a very, very short time, like a day or 2, he started to say a sentence. He was 5 years old then. And then with the consistent wearing of the Noyet, he had major developments. And right now, he is able to orient himself to the real true facts of the environment without the use of the machine anymore. Now you can see that there's a stick at the back of a body, and this is also an alternative to the headphones. So with that, we are triggering the individuation process. So you will see some of the signs when the person is going through this process. They started to have these terrible effects, okay? It is not too fun for parents to have terrible symptoms, but you find that they now resist. Well, despite that we don't like them to be not listening to us, it is a very important milestone. So I will always talk to my parents and say, okay, accept it. It's not fun. I'm definitely understanding how bad it is to have a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, or even a 10-year-old, 20-year-old, or 30-year-old to go through that terrible 2 stage. But it is a must that they pass through this stage before they can get individuated. We will see some of the signs pretty significant and prominent if they are going through this individuation process. You will see terrible twos. You will see them having modesty. They will start making more sounds and words. They have more interaction. Well, one typical and things that is very challenging is saying no to you all the time now. They are more curious about things happening around them. They start to use pronouns. They have more external awareness. They are willing to try things. But all these changes can, well, range from full-on or very subtle ones. And with the clients I worked with, well, there are loads of differences between them. So when we see these changes happening, that means individuation is on the way, and it will finish anytime. So when we recognize that the student, the child, or the adult, ASD, is seeing themselves as separate from others, with their own opinions and feelings that are different from others, they develop a sense of self as an individual, and that is what individuation is about. So they would say what they like, and they will reject what they don't like. Remember we talked about the 3 worlds. When a person is individuated, what is happening to these 3 worlds is that they started to integrate, not as separate worlds, but as an integration. And those of us who follow the neurotypical development exist in all 3 worlds now can come together in harmony, and they now have the basis to begin the process of identity development. So we had actually fill up some of the pieces in this domino setup. We are putting missing pieces so that the next stage can go on. And we can gradually give him, provide him, work with him experiences that can help them to shape their identity. So all the gaps that were missing will be coming out. So in this process, what are we doing? We will give them some self-management tools. We will teach them the orientation. We will teach them release, which help them to control their anxiety or to get rid of tensions. We will teach them dial, which is helping them to adjust their energy to the appropriate levels upon different activities on a daily basis. We will use cush as an exercise. Cush is a cush ball exercise, which is a soft ball that we do exercises with to help them to consolidate all these tools. And once they have these tools, they are able to manage themselves. And they would be able to control and help them to stay more at the oriented stage. And of course, we would help them create a representation of themselves in clay. And which is very important because they came out from everything and nothing at the same time. Now they need to lock into that they are one self, they are one person. And so from there, we build on all of these knowledge. Some parents are worried that what about the problems they have right now? What are the experiences? What will happen to them? Will we be able to erase what is already there? The answer, of course, is that we cannot remove any existing identity. But what we could do is we could add to it. This is very important. When we build ourselves, it is like building a tower. If the tower is built on solid basis, then it will grow tall. It can build on top a lot more things. And in an ASD, a lot of the times we found holes in the basement. We found holes in the foundation. And this is creating an identity which is not so complete by themselves. So what we are going to do, we will actually help them to put those missing pieces into that tower, the basement, the foundation. And with a very good solid foundation, they could grow on top. They could build on top their new development, their new identity. Remember, we are not removing anything from them. We are just adding, making them understand, making their identity richer. But how are we going to do it? So there are 4 steps to it. We will introduce an idea, which is important, a missing piece, okay? We will make a model in clay, like the one you see in the middle here. We will experience it in the environment, and we will again master it, the simplest form, so we remember it as a formula. It sounds pretty abstract, right? Okay, so let me explain a little bit with this concept of change. So change is inevitable in our daily life. We change every second. And change, by definition, is something becoming something else. You can see here at the model, some blocks are becoming a tower. That's a change. I observe that change. I can, of course, make that change. But here we are looking at seeing the change, not looking at who is doing the job. So I will see change. I will see change that my cup is empty. Now it is filled with maybe hot chocolate. I can see that my plate has a pizza on it, and now it's changed to empty, an empty plate. I can see that if I press the button, and then the light will be on. So the light is off, changing to the light is on. So I can observe a lot of changes. And from this, the students will be able to see, oh, there is something interesting in the environment. I need to see about it. What is the meaning of things? Why are they connected? They are not individual incidents. They happen because of something else. There is a relation to it. There is a time relation to it, and there is a causal relation to things happening. And that helps them to understand what is working around him, what is happening in the environment, what can he do to make certain change, and what can he not do to not initiate a change. And that is huge understanding for the concept of time later on, as well as sequence and putting things in order. So the structure of identity development is based on these 4 steps. And with a lot of exploration in our life, in the student's life, in many, many different environments, they will start to understand how this concept works in real daily life. And every time we did a concept, we are making a missing piece very solid in the tower of his own identity. And in time, we will be able to help him to understand the very most important basic life concepts. And then build on that life concepts and his experience, he understands how the world is working around him. So you may have wondered, what kind of concepts are we going to work on? This is the total construction of all the concepts we are working on. We start off with self, and then we have three big constructions in these triangles, one following another. And after we understand and learn all these concepts, we are going to integrate these concepts into a fourth level. You can see here the three concepts here, until at the last we understand the responsibility concept. So all of this construction would be learned through the DAA program. And once these concepts are anchored in, generalizations of experiences happen. So it may be that they learned something in one situation, but they couldn't apply or generalize it to other situations. So I've seen this happen in my clients as well, where other therapies have taught them something in one situation and they only know the skill in that situation. But once our clients had these concepts, she was able to apply them to new situations because we did a lot of exploration. So looking back into these construction, you can see that we started off with a natural law. Change is natural law, a root concept. Continue is another natural law, and energy is another, the third natural law we are working on. And then we have base concepts. Base concepts are how, as we human beings experience the natural law and how we interact with it, where it has an impact on us, and from either cause or effect. And then we have the next set of levels, the basic concepts, how we apply the natural law, how we use it and interact with it. And then we have common concepts. And these need an understanding of more than one root concept. And lastly, we have the advanced concept needing all three root concepts. So you see that we understand the world through installing or learning about these concepts. And when a person understands all of these concepts, this is where good or bad and right or wrong sits. And you need a really solid core identity here in this area, all of these, in order to hold on to or file experiences so that choices can be made and values be created. So what is it now? You remember we have these three worlds, okay? So we have all these experiences, but some of the experiences are not planned, like we're having some fun at the snow, having some good time with animals, or bad times, whatever, okay? Or maybe you have some fun with games and some bad times with games. And we have a lot of these experiences. All of these experiences help us to understand and solidify these concepts. And we constantly, with a new experience, we add to our identity. And with these filing of these systems, we continue to build our core identity until the day we die. So like well, for me, I could give you a very simple example that I came through. When I was studying secondary school, I studied computer. I'm not sure if every one of you had computer lessons then, but I still remember the Apple II computer I work on, and then I opened up with this Apple II computer, and then so when I have this Apple II computer, I can see how the cards work on, and then later on, we move on to other computers. The IBM computers come on in, okay? So we learn about it. This is a new experience, but then I learned from what I had with the Apple II, and then integrating it into the PC computer, the IBM computer. And then later on, when I get into university, I work with an advanced Macintosh computer on sound processing. Okay, and this is a new type of computer programs and working with sounds and stuff like that. But it is again based on what I have learned. And so I integrate what I have learned before with these new experience, and I learn day by day. Now, every now and then, I need to learn about new computers. I need to learn about my new phone, okay, because they have to be changed somehow, okay? And I have to learn about my new computer, my laptop computer. And then I have to learn about these new apps to use, okay? These new platforms of everything. So I actually build on from what I had before and go on. And so it is sort of like a never-ending story. But I have the basis to understand that, and that will be important, okay? So that is how we build on to the core identity from individuation as an individual to a person who has their own likes and dislikes, wants and needs and stuff like that. But so far, we have been talking about a person inside. We are not interacting outside. So the next step would be, of course, to have social integration. So let's look at the next slides, okay? Social integration is, of course, when we have experiences which we can reflect upon, we can then use these experiences to predict an outcome. And that is a lot of time for social interaction, okay? Because social interaction involves prediction. Okay, I say hello to the person, what would he say, what would she say, what would he do, what would she do, and also a reflection of how we are doing. So this is what the definition actually ASD comes from. ASD individuals lack appropriate social integration. And by having these important experiences, the concepts in this real world, it provides a foundation for them to be able to predict social integration. So that is the major thing we are concerned about a lot of the times on ASD. But you see, this only show as in the program a later stage, because we see that there are a lot of missing pieces before this could happen. And we are working at the root of the problems. So that's why the DAA is working so well, because it is helping to build a foundation to support the social integration. So we don't just jump into social integration and do social integration, but we understand the things that are behind it. And so one of the things we do will be, we will establish the idea of what relationship is. We're learning it like a knowledge base, as a concept, what it is, and how is the interaction with others could be classified. And from there, we will understand a lot of different things. So we have relationship with others. There are a couple of different relationships. We have relationship and behaviors with one another based on trust, okay? We have relationship and behaviors with one or more others, which is belief. We have a relationship and behaviors with many others that does not originate in self. And we have rules, relationship and behaviors with all others that does not originate in self. Now, this, we are just going to give you a very brief idea of what are the relationships. Of course, we are not going to dig into detail within this hour, but I would like to share with you, these are some of the concepts which are very important for them to understand what relationships are. We are not just saying relationship as one thing, but we categorize it and how they are different from each other. And then based on the situation, we will be able to help us understand what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong, and in given situations, allowing appropriate choices or decisions to be made. So as a sum up for the time being is, the methodology started with natural, for helping them to develop a stable orientation, so that individuation, being an individual, is applicable. And when that individual is ready, we will develop the core identity by learning a lot of core concepts. The concepts are consolidated by applying, exploring a lot in their environments. And after they have learned through all these concepts, we moved on to concepts that are related to building relationships. And so you can see the whole of the Davis Autism Approach is about understanding the basis for being able to participate fully in life. So let's talk about how we can get access to the program, the DAA program, after we understand about there are 3 sections to it. Let's see about our options. Okay, there are several ways that you can access the program. Okay, so we are going to say, talk about it one by one. So the first type is fully facilitated. It will take up to 20 days with a facilitator. A facilitator is a licensed person who had gone through all of the professional training from the Davis Institution. Okay, so this is what we refer to as facilitator. So you can either work in the facilitator's office or in the individual's home, depending, okay? Generally, 2 5-day blocks. 5 day, meaning each day is like 6 hours long. Then after these 2 5-day blocks, return for blocks of 3 to 5 days. So what do? The facilitator completes all the concepts and the explorations with the client and gives the family support to integrate the concepts in the home. So by means of fully facilitated, meaning the facilitator do all of the work. Okay, because some of the ASD individuals may not have support person, especially for adults. So they would need a fully facilitated way of program. Okay. But you don't need to choose this. There are other options. You have to see which one fits you for best, okay? The second type of program is a coached program. So it is up to 10 days with the facilitator, okay? So again, we can choose to work where to work on or where to work, okay? And it is generally, first of all, starting with a 5-day block with the facilitator and then the coach. Who could be the coach? It could be the parents, it could be a therapist working with the child or the ASD individual, or maybe any other support person that the family choose to work with. And returns for blocks of 2, 3, or 5 days. And then the facilitator completes the initial concepts. So to start off the process and the explorations with the client and their coach so that they understand how it is working on. And then the coach then takes over the facilitation and returns to the facilitator for guidance as needed. Okay? So there must be something that you need to be aware of in this type of program, a coach program. The coach must be taken through all the concepts by the facilitator before guiding their loved one through the concepts. So the facilitator will work with the coach, okay, instead of directly with the client, because the exploration could take a lot of time before the concept sits in. And the facilitator could give the family continued support to implement the concepts at home. So that is the second type of program. Now, another type of program would be in the form of a workshop. Okay, so 2 to 5 days in a practical workshop, and of course in a workshop environment. Nowadays we may have a lot of online workshops offered, or maybe there are in person. So you can see from the picture that this is an personal workshop taken place, okay, earlier. And we have different types of workshops for different age and different needs. Okay, this David Stone Stepping Stones is for younger ones, and the David's Live Concepts for Autism workshop would be for other ages. Okay, so the presenter of the workshop will guide participants through the reasoning and the logic that underpins the program. And the participant will create the concepts for themselves and learn how to facilitate them with their loved one and integrate them into their home life. So this is another option, that you learn it yourself really well in a workshop, and then you go home and work with them. So you will be able to access support from a licensed facilitator. And then, of course, at the same time, you can enjoy the support of others and share stories with those who are in similar situation. Okay, and you will find more information in this website, and we will give you another updated website later on, because we have a change in the website address, and some major changes have taken place over the last 1 or 2 years about the association. Okay, let's see next. But what is the benefits of the program? Okay, we would want to know. It is some general comments from a lot of facilitators who worked all over the world. Okay, number one, greater sense of self. So the individual are more aware of self. Number two, they have the self-management tools to assist them to manage anxiety and stress, help them to focus better and control their energy levels. They reduce in their sensory overloading symptoms, which we often refer to the SI problems, the sensory integration problems. And they have reduced or less intense emotional meltdowns. They have greater capacity to cope with change and greater ability to cause a change in their life. They increase in their ability to take part in daily activities, try new things, which is very challenging to try new things, like trying a new toilet. It could be so big a challenge for them. And we saw them happening. And create order in their life. They are able to establish and maintain relationships, better relationships with others. And they improve in their interpersonal communications skills, lower social anxiety. Last but not least, they increase in their ability to make decisions based on what is right or wrong for self. So these are the major benefits of the program, which I think it is huge for a lot of families, and for me it is more than I could say. Okay, it is much more than is listed here. So I hope that today you will understand more about the Davis Autism Approach, where it is coming from, how we looked at development, how we help the people through the Davis Autism Approach, and what are the available programs that are available right now. Before we end this workshop, before we end this little talk, I would like to tell you two major important news. One is the Ron Davis Autism Foundation is now formed a charity organization in 2019, which is making the Autism Approach and the Davis work more available to many, many people who are in need. And we will include this information at the end. You will see in this website, and then please join us to help more people. The second announcement is about an upcoming workshop, the Davis Stepping Stones in-person workshop, to be held in March and April this year at the city of Milton Keynes. It is a bilingual workshop, which is for both English-speaking and Cantonese-speaking individuals, parents, caregivers, educators, and therapists to attend. Our presenters, besides me, we have also Tessa Halliwell. So for more information and registration, you can either click onto the link or scan the QR code to get to the website where all the information would be carried. And in case you're more interested in getting deeper into the information that I've talked about today, you're very welcome to look into this book called The Autism and the Seeds of Change. And if you want to get a copy from us, please also contact us. And you will find our contact details here. So I'll see you soon. Goodbye and have a lovely day. Thank you.